Welcome back. You've heard a lot about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, but do you really know the benefits? Let's take a look at this clip.
Africa is a big continent. You could fit the US, China, and Europe into the continent and still have space to spare. But in economic terms, individual countries are still very small. Take Rwanda, for instance. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world, but in terms of size, it ranks number 143rd out of 193 economies in the world. This matters because small economies often struggle to attract the much-needed investments. Collectively, the story is very different. The African continent, all 54 economies together, have a collective GDP of $2.5 trillion. That makes it the 8th largest economy in the world, just behind India.
One thing I want to add, Sora, which I think is very important because His Excellency Wamkele also spoke about this. The AfCFTA, in collaboration with Afri Champions, are working on creating a platform, a Pan-African settlement platform. Now, what does this mean? So when a trader, let's say for instance, a trader in Nigeria trading under the AfCFTA with someone else in Congo, the Nigerian trader who's exporting to Congo will be able to transfer money in their local currency. And also the person in Congo will be able to receive the money in the local currency. This will reduce the cost which is normally associated with changing of local currency just to the dollar just to trade.
This mechanism will enable each African country to use its own currency in any transaction. So the PAPS is a critical factor for the smooth implementation of the African Union's success in African Continental Free Trade Agreements.
Now the Afri Champions initiative is a public and private partnership designed to galvanize African resources and institutions to drive Africa's economic integration and transformation.
Dr. Edem Azokinu, the chairperson of Afri Champions initiative, spoke about the realization of the single market and the Afri Champions initiative.
We at Afri Champions, on behalf of our multiple stakeholders, the African private sector, the multitude of African SMEs and CSOs, accept the responsibility to take ownership of the AfCFTA and are committed to work together to ensure that this agreement does not remain a trade treaty, but rather the greatest investment opportunity of the 21st century. We are grateful for the partnerships forged with the African Union, the AfCFTA Secretariat and others on our AfCFTA-focused initiatives, namely the $1 Trillion Investment Framework and its archetypal Orango Investment Fund, Avriva, which combines entrepreneurial and STEM capacities of Africans to innovate homegrown tech solutions that will accelerate the implementation of the AfCFTA, and Nefertiti, which aims to unravel and liberate the immense potentials endowed in the African creative sectors.
Dr. Eden emphasizes on the fact that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement has demonstrated the resilient spirit of Africans when, despite the global context of the pandemic, went ahead to start the trading on January 1st, 2021. When he said that it's not a treaty, but the biggest investment opportunity of the 21st century, he just reassures us that Africa's best insurance policy and strategy to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The African Union would like to keep track of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and all negotiations around digital technology. He mentioned Avriva. It's right to say that Avriva stands for the African Virtual Resilient Integration for a Vibrant Africa. Its framework is being developed as a public-private initiative between the African Union Commission and over 24 major multinational African corporations and Pan-African institutions operating under the umbrella of the Afri Champions initiative.
I think it's only fair that we inform our viewers, who is Afri Champions? Who are the people behind this initiative? So the Afri Champions initiative is a project that seeks to mobilize investment funds to help give rise to African Economic Champions. So Afri Champions is co-chaired by former South African President Thabo Mbeki and Nigerian businessman Aliko Dangote, who brings together a range of business and political figures. This includes Togolese Gervas Jondo, who is a co-founder of EcoBank and founder of Sky Airlines. Also the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, Mali's Samba Bathily, CEO of Africa Development Solutions and Industrial Financial Group, Egyptian Naguib Sawiris, chairman of Orascom, Cameroonian Paul Fokam, chairman and CEO of Afriland and Fairs Group, Jean-Louis Billon, former CEO of Ivorian Industrial Group, Sifka, and former Minister of Commerce of Ivory Coast. Their aim is to reach that $1 trillion objective between now and 2030. Now, joining us on the show is Richard Edujemfi. He's the Senior Technical and Research Advisor, Afri Champions. Richard, let's start with the $1 trillion proposed investment framework. What about the notion that this initiative will only favor big companies?
Thank you very much. This is a very useful point which you talked about, because the AfCFTA, it's really, if you really consider it, it's really about small businesses able to trade across the continent with very little hindrance or no hindrances at all. So if it is for big companies, then what is the essence? Well, this is the approach. Yes, of course, the $1 trillion framework looks to attract investment. Yeah, and big companies normally have such big human or resource or financial capital to be able to do this. Yes, but look at it from this way: these big companies are attracted, and then they are linked to various small and medium-sized enterprises. So the aim is not to neglect SMEs, but rather to use the big companies to draw them closer.
Now, Richard, the question I'm about to ask you pops up a lot every time we engage with people about the African Continental Free Trade Area. And you tend to realize their worry is, how can the AfCFTA make sure the West do not manipulate this initiative? Because this is what causes a lot of people to have doubts about the effectiveness of the AfCFTA.
You know, we need partnership. I'm coming down to the question on how the West doesn't interfere. This is an opportunity for Africa to take hold of its own destiny, the Africa we want, the agenda of 2063. But at the same time, while we go along with this, we need partnerships. And here we need not just the West, but any player who is interested to join the bandwagon. But here, once again, and I might be a bit firm here, Africa or Africans should now, at this time, be ready to say that, look, we want to help, we want to develop our continent, and we need you as partners. We don't need you as aid providers, or we don't need you to tell us that do this and do that, and that will help you survive, or that will help you succeed. No, we need partners who would help Africa to succeed without any backbiting. We know what have happened in the past with colonial economics, where Africa was always being the raw material base, which is taken out, refined, and then comes back into the continent as a product where it is even more expensive for people to buy. This time around, we want to do this on our continent, and so we need support. And that is where we need players like the West. And of course, the European Union is very much involved, which is okay, because we have trade relations with the European Union for a long time. But we want to move away from just trade in simple raw material to Europe relationship. No, we need value-added products to leave Africa to Europe where necessary. And we want to be able to do that with support. and partnership. This is what I would say.
That was an insightful conversation up there between Jones and Richards. Now that we are coming to the end of the show, we need to remember that market integration is a process. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is our opportunity to integrate as a single market. Solidarity is needed like never before. Stronger together. Let's roll as one Africa we want. We are looking forward to seeing the gains of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But first, let's change our mindset and consume made in Africa. Let's change our mindset and trade more between us. Let's change our mindset and bring our collective intelligence together to help Africa rise.
Sadly, we've come to the end of the show, and we hope you enjoyed it. It would be good to hear your take on the show, or if you have any questions you would want us to ask on your behalf, you can do so. Head over to Voxafrica's social media platforms and leave your messages, and we will do our best to put your questions forward to the people at the helm of affairs. From myself and Sora, thank you for staying tuned. All being well, we will see you next week. Look after yourself and your loved ones.
Thank you for watching.